Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this morning. We're going to go ahead and give everyone a minute to get started. Okay, all right, let's get started, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to our monthly webinar from Expert Marketing Advisors, where we'll be discussing everything you need to know about refreshing your website. My name is Emerald Lenskog, and I'm joined here today by Hanan Rasul, who's the CEO and founder of Digital Rift Agency, as well as Sarah Nichols, our Senior Engagement Manager here at Expert Marketing Advisors. Hanan leads a team of website developers and designers with decades of experience and is our partner at EMA to support our clients in these areas. Sarah, Hanan, and I have worked together on many website projects over the last few years for our clients. And we know that websites are really your main player in any company's demand gen strategy. It's kind of your storefront, if you will. And so your website is a living, breathing organism and needs constant attention, revamping, whether it's back-end development, creating educational resources aimed at your target demographic, or redesigning web pages to increase conversion. We know that all of projects related to web dev can be very time intensive. You're usually coordinating with multiple stakeholders across your company, both internal and external folks. So these can be big projects, and we want to make sure that we are going to be touching on some things to help you succeed in refreshing your website, both technically and organizationally. So this webinar is kind of designed to be the first of a series in website development. So we hope that you will check back with us. Each month we'll be doing something and tackling a different subject along web dev. And you can always find all of our webinar resources on our website and on demand at any time, as well as our YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and get into it. So what we'll be covering today is deciding when to refresh your website. What are some of those indicators that will help us decide? Understanding what is the difference between refreshing and redesigning, looking at your ideal website refresh workflow, and some best practices in managing these complex workflows and working with your teams. So we do want this to be conversational. Feel free to please drop any questions inside of our Q&A box, and we'll be sure to answer all of them live. So Hanan, let's kind of get into it. So let's take a look at what is a website refresh versus a website redesign and deciding which one you need to do.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us over here. And yeah, this is a question which pops up every time we talk about website development or refreshing the website. And there's a common misconception that, between website refresh and redesign, some people use it interchangeably. However, the technical differentiation over here is a refresh entails anything which is design related change. It could vary from a simple updating of the color palettes or your brand guidelines to a complete overhaul of how the website looks and feels, including the page layouts. However, what it does not entail is the back end of the website, how the website is functioning under the hood, sort of, your CMS, how your search is functioning, how your mega menus are built. That sort of a thing remains under the ambit of redesign. So if you talk about redesigning the website, that can entail everything which is within the refresh. Plus, when you touch the backend of the website, the CMS, how the databases are managed, what kind of technology you're using at the backend, that is when it falls under the ambit of redesign. So first of all, you need to make sure what exactly do you want to cover, what your goal is, whether you need a simple website refresh and that will do the trick, or you really need to go towards the redesign. So some of the things that you need to consider is number one, define the goal, clearly lay it out that, okay, the reason why we're doing, taking on this undertaking is uh, there is an underlying issue. For example, it could range from low conversion rates or, something like that. That's what companies usually face as well, that this page is not converting. It used to be fine, but now all of a sudden we're seeing a drop in traffic. People are coming, but they're bouncing. We're seeing high bounce rates. So for that, you basically define, okay, do I need to go towards a website refresh or a redesign? Then you need to also consider the fact that what is your timeline that you're tackling over here? What that will also lead to what are your budgetary constraints over here? Is there something, foundational that you need to change in your website? For example, some features you need to add. You need to add on another layer within the website, or whether your CMS, the current CMS that you're using, is it up to date? Does it have all the security patches? Is it too reliant on the plugins or not? So these kinds of questions and considerations you need to take care of. You need to tackle them before deciding whether to go with a redesign or to go with a refresh.
Definitely. I think also, budget and timeline are probably some things that you definitely need to consider, especially with the greater team's involvement of decision making too.
Yeah, definitely. And that basically rolls the whole project, that drives everything.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's look at when you should decide to refresh your website. What are some of the indicators that we're going to look at to help us make our decision?
Yep. So often companies, they think about that, okay, we have a website, it's functioning right now. When should we go about it? And what are the certain indicators? Some major indicators that we rely on over and over again, that is, how is your bounce rate? How are your conversion rates? The basic indicators that Google Analytics also provides you. What is the time spent on the website? If you see that all of these are going in the wrong direction, for example, you're having high bounce rates, low conversion rates, or the time spent on the website, or the average number of pages that are viewed is reducing as well. And it's often a combination of these. So you don't just look at just one set of KPIs. It's a holistic picture that you have to view. And from there, you define, okay, now maybe there's an underlying issue, so we might have to do something about it. And that's an indicator for when you should, start off with your website refresh project. Now, if you have, when you're considering a website refresh and looking at these indicators, just keep one thing in mind, that not everything might be related to design or the website features. It could sometimes be your messaging, that it's outdated. Could sometimes be that your competitors have come up with a better offering. So you have to look at the content, plus you have to look at what your website is currently, how it's currently designed.
Yeah, I would say it could be visual, but it could also be, like you're saying, the content that needs refreshing. So deciding when to do what. So maybe besides like Google Analytics or looking inside of your CMS, are there any other tools you recommend that people are using or have in place that will give them some of these key performance indicators or metrics?
Yeah, the basic tool, the primary tool that we recommend to everyone to use is fully utilize the Google Suite. So Google has a lot of different tools built into it. People usually do not use Google to its full capacity. Number one, we should do that. Look at Google dashboard, look at Google Ads, look at Google Search Console, look at Google Analytics. Do you have the analytics properly configured? Do you have all the instances, conversions properly configured? That's important. But outside of Google, we rely on Moz, we rely on SEMrush, on Screaming Frog, these kinds of different tools. And there's a plethora of tools out there. I'm just mentioning those that we usually rely on. And, as long as the tool is providing you accurate information, it's just a matter of how you mix these together and make it work. It depends on you and your team, how you want to, enable your tech stack.
Mm-hmm.
And from the visual point of view that you mentioned, obviously, when we talk about website, the most important thing is the brand look and feel, how your website is looking. And that brings us to the second point, that you have to look at what the global design indicators are and how everyone else's website is doing, especially your competitors' websites. You don't want to create a website and then leave it. As you mentioned, it's a living and breathing organism which needs to be updated every now and then. So for that, we recommend to look at the global design indicators. Some of the ways you can do that is by start off with a simple Google search. What are the new design indicators? Or you could look at some industry thought leaders or platforms, for example, Dribble, Awards, Pinterest, and just keep an eye out the way the trends are leading.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think it is important to stay on top of the trends. How do you, maybe can you talk about if there are any certain global design features you're seeing right now, or also how can people, I know I get overwhelmed by what's the latest marketing trend, what's happening now, but how do you advise teams to really evaluate what design trends make sense for their brand?
That's a very good question, since there's just so much content which is being created by everyone, and there's so many design trends. You'll probably see 10 different design trends happening in a year. You don't want to jump on each bandwagon. You have to first wait and see that whether this this is pertinent to our industry, the industry you're functioning in, whether it's something which others are doing and is a fad right now, so others are following it, does not necessarily mean that you should also do that. So for that, I would recommend that first of all, look at your industry, define where you function, and look at your competitors, look at the industry leaders as well. And also, whenever you're searching platforms, since these platforms will be featuring all kinds of industries, basically want to focus on. For example, right now, the design trend going on is Web 3.0 websites, which is moving from light websites to a darker theme websites, using a lot of 3D, a lot of illustrations. People are moving away from stock imagery and going towards customized designs, customized illustrations. And with that, you just have a lot of leverage. For a stock photo, you're very limited to the scene, and there's not much you can do on that. Probably add some animation to it. But if you're talking about illustrations or 3Ds, 3Ds look really slick, and illustrations, you can incorporate all kinds of different ideas that go beyond, just the scene which is set in the camera.
Mm-hmm. So Hanan, we have a question from the audience, and that's, are there any leading blogs that you follow to keep ahead of website design trends, or where are you kind of going online to find out what's trending now?
So what we do is we obviously, have a few blogs listed out towards HubSpot blogs. They basically consolidate all the data from different blogs, and that's usually a good source for us to know that what is happening in the industry. Secondly, as I mentioned, there are two platforms that we visit a lot. One is Dribble. The other one is Awards. So Awards basically features all the latest websites which are trying new things, different things, and that can give you the outer edge of what the industry is doing. Whereas on Dribble and even on Behance, you can look at different portfolios. People are always sharing, this is the new style of how you want to design a blade or a website front. And that's just a good place to get inspiration. At the end of the day, you just want inspiration, and then you design it yourself.
Definitely. Okay, great. Let's move on to our next points here.
Okay, so once these are we featured the two primary reasons why you want to do that. Then obviously, while you're thinking of a design refresh, it could also be because your brand is revamping itself. You're changing the brand guideline, the look and feel of the brand. You could have new colors. You could have a new logo. You want to just completely revamp your website for that as well. And that is pretty much linked to the rest of the points. You're a small startup. You used to be a small startup. Now, you've progressed. You've developed more product features. You have more content to talk about, you have more depth in the product, you might want to have another portal incorporated within your website for the users. So for these kinds of reasons, you might want to look at a design refresh, a website refresh, or a website redesign altogether.
And
So
I would
I
say,
basically call it,
oh,
sorry,
sorry,
yeah, go
no.
on.
I would add to that I think sometimes folks just want to look bigger than they are as a company, especially in the startup world. So it's an opportunity maybe out of the gate, you're like, we got to get something up, and you have somebody on your team who has, moderate skill in developing websites, and they put something up that's workable in the beginning stages, but maybe you're up leveling a bit. You want to look larger than you are. And that's a great time to really pick up the pace with your website.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point, because at the end of the day, your website is your marketing asset, and you want to position first digital imprint, and that will take you a long way. And especially for startups, they want to look bigger than they really are. And that is what drives their funding rounds as well, their VCs as well. They look at the website first and foremost to ascertain whether this company is serious, whether the players are mature, whether they have all the information available over there. And once you receive that kind of funding, or you have up-leveled yourself, your product portfolio, that's when you would like to sort of come out of your shell. You might think about revamping the brand look and feel. You started off with something small, an idea. Now the concept has developed into something greater. You have more product lines that you want to talk about, and along with that, once you are doing a refresh, you might think about what other features you want to introduce into your website. Would you want to bring in more functionality? Do you want a dashboard where people can log in, an online portal? So these kinds of things usually drive the need for a website redesign or a refresh.
So one of the questions we got from the audience is if they know it'll be a range, because of course everything with websites is, but can we talk a little bit about what we think an estimated budget might be for a refresh versus a redesign? I guess my first thoughts are whether or not you have those capabilities of internal team members, or if you're going to need to hire maybe an outside agency to support you on those efforts.
Yeah, I think let's assume that they're going to hire an outside agency, because if you have in-house resources to do that, we can talk to the timeline, but not the budget. Depends on how your company has hired the people. But a website refresh or a redesign, especially a redesign, can take anywhere from 3 months to about 5 months time period. And sometimes it goes up to a year, depends on how much complication you want to build into it, depends on where the current website is. And, for example, if you have a huge website, it has a lot of pages, hundreds of pages, a long history, you've built it out over a decade, and now you're deciding on changing or refreshing, completely redesigning the website and changing your CMS and going to a different technology. Now, undertaking that kind of a project will take some time, a lot of planning. You might want to incorporate within that, your new brand guidelines. So all of these complications, these things, they add on to the timeline. But this cannot be answered without specifically, first knowing what the requirement is. That is sort of like, a disclaimer that I want to give. But
Right.
on average, what we've experienced is, if it's just a design, website refresh, where we're just changing the brand guidelines, the page layouts, the underlying technology remains the same, it takes about 2 to 3 months. And if it's something more than that, we're going towards a new CMS, then obviously it takes about, starting from 3 months, goes up to 6 months.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Awesome. So let's kind of get into maybe the practical side of things and talk really about what does a best practice and workflow look like when you're working through these projects.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to put our project management hat on a little bit in the approach to the refresh or redesign workflow, and kind of talk through ideal processes. changes a little bit by the company, so it won't necessarily work in this order, and things always overlap and cascade. But this would be kind of our best practice for the process to follow when moving towards a website refresh or redesign. So there's work to be done before you ever get to the exciting part of designing and developing your website. And our first thing that we always recommend is pulling in all of your internal key stakeholders who are going to contribute their opinions to the website. It's very frequent for us where, we get 2-3 people from the team in, we go through weeks and weeks of like planning, and then at the last minute, they'll pull in the CEO or somebody else in their team who's a key decision maker. And they come in and they have a very strong opinion that the work that was done is not in line with the vision that they have. And so that can oftentimes, you have to start off from scratch, or you have to kind of like tweak all of the work, time, and attention that you've already put into the entire process. And so really identifying from the get-go who are the people whose opinions really matter, and make sure that they're an active part, even if not on a day-to-day basis, but set like marks along the way where they're checking in and giving their opinion to make sure that you're going the direction that they want you to be going. Beyond that, having a really good idea of your ideal customer profiles, ICP, who is your website speaking to, because that really drives all of the messaging on your site, the visuals that you're choosing for the site, what's going to appeal to that persona. So very clearly defining who are you hoping is looking at your website and taking action, and how are you appealing to their goals, their problems, their pain points within your design. And Hanan, stop me along the way if you have anything to add to that. I think you have a lot to add on the user journey mapping.
Yeah.
After identifying those ICP, what journey do we take people on in the website? So they fall onto a page, let's say the home page. Where do we want to be taking them throughout the website so that they're finding the right assets, getting the right information? And Hanan, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. You're kind of the pro here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of this is interlinked. All of these steps support each other. They support the whole process and drive the whole process. Starting from the very first point that you mentioned, I again cannot emphasize enough how many times this has happened with you, with me. We've experienced this, that the internal stakeholders were not all introduced at the right time. And specifically talking about the user journey mapping, this is something which will impact your content. This is something which will impact your sitemap, something which will really drive the content and the design and the layout of the website. So the way you do user journey mapping is, after you've identified your ideal customer profiles, you conduct deep, in-depth interviews with them, one-on-one interviews, to understand what their pain points are whenever they're considering, and it basically covers the whole buying process, their thought process of when they want to, for example, purchase a SaaS software. What's the first source of information they look for? Do they go on Google? Do they look towards their colleagues, towards other companies? How do they start off their search? Right till the point where they make the decision. What are the pain points, what different types of assets they would like to look at, how much time specifically do they spend on the website over a period of month, or could be 2 months, what's the whole timeline for making that purchase. And that is how you basically drive your sitemap and your content. That, okay, the person is a CFO, comes in, looks at the website, likes the website. What kind of content would you like to display on the homepage for that person? If you're going to be running some digital marketing campaigns, lead capturing campaigns, how should the landing page be designed? What information should be displayed over there? And so on and so forth. So it's all interlinked. And one thing that many companies just skip over is the journey mapping. And I feel that is very, very essential for having a website that works, for having a website which creates good leads. And, once you've covered all these bases, you wouldn't wonder about, we have all this in place. Why isn't it working? You'll find the answers in the journey mapping.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And next step after that is really based off of that user journey map, is defining the actual sitemap itself. So this is PreDesign. It can be as simple as a spreadsheet or sketching it out on a piece of paper. What items, what's in your top navigation, what are your subheaders, and what's going to be in your footer, mapping all of that out so you know exactly what content you need to create for that site. And then in addition to that is keyword research. So moving into the content piece of it, when writing copy for your website, we really want to have our keywords in mind so that you're not keyword stuffing per se, but we have SEO optimization in mind as you're writing your content. So having clearly defined keywords is helpful to get going. It also helps in the back end of your website as you're putting in meta titles, descriptions, things like that. And a big question that we get, we put it as the next step. Step 6 is finalizing the content and copy for the pages. There can be debate at times. Is it design the page and then write the copy to fill in those gaps? Or is it writing the copy first and then designing around that copy? It really can go either way. However, our recommendation just in the times that we've been working with different clients is to really start with the copy first. Make sure that your messaging is really strong. You have the appropriate keywords in place. You're answering the problem that your ideal customer persona has, and then you can design around that. Because otherwise you can have this really fancy, beautiful design, but it doesn't leave the space that you need to write the copy, or you find yourself writing copy that's longer than what fits the space in the design. And then you have to kind of go back and board a little bit. So for streamlining the process, we've found that copy comes first and then design comes thereafter. And then beyond that, go
sorry,
ahead.
just
Yeah.
one thing. Again, the advantage to doing that is you can always, once you've started with the design phase, you can always come back and, if you want to modify the copy, it's easier to modify the copy and add on more to it. So yeah,
Copy is
I
easier to change than
completely agree
design.
with you.
Yeah. And then after copy would be to define the tech stack that you're using. So what plugins do you need? Security plugins, site speed optimization. But this can include, are you using WordPress forms to capture information? Or are you using HubSpot, Marketo forms? What's your marketing automation tool to make sure you're integrating that in the correct place? And then also defining the brand guidelines as a final step. Sometimes people try to conquer website design and brand in parallel, and that can be a little bit challenging just because it's nice as you're doing the design to have clearly defined colors, to have your logo in place, that you're just inserting that into your design easily instead of kind of going through the debate as you're trying to design. It's just a much more streamlined approach. And then just one point to keep in mind as you're choosing fonts, that it's Google friendly fonts, just easier access, don't have to pay a premium, things of that nature. And I don't know, not if you have anything to add on to that.
Yeah, that reminds me what you just mentioned, that people sometimes try to do it in parallel, the design and the brand guidelines, and it reminds me of an experience we had not long ago, where the brand guideline wasn't defined, and we were also working on the website design. And whenever we decided on a brand guideline color, they would look at the mock design and they'll go like, no, maybe we can change the colors a little bit, and that would be actually driving the brand guideline, and that delayed the whole process. Whereas the brand guideline should be, if you've properly designed brand guidelines which have clearly listed down all the colors, different shades which are required, that is supposed to drive the design, and that would really streamline the whole work process as well.
Hanan, someone's asking, is there, where can we find documentation of what are the Google friendly fonts?
Just go to Google Fonts. I mean, just they have like a long list of all the fonts which are available, and you can just search it on Google, and yeah, that's about it. You'll have it, and you don't need to pay any premium price for it. They're free to download, and the good thing with Google is most of their fonts already come pre-downloaded in most of the programs that we're using. Could be your Microsoft Office, could be Figma, could be anything else. But if some font is not available, already pre-downloaded in that, you can just download the file over there from Google.
Nice. Okay. And then one more question, going back a little bit, but if you guys can expand a little bit on interlinking and best practices and the considerations involved.
Yeah, this kind of maps together the user journey mapping, the keyword research, and the copy itself all kind of come into play with interlinking. What we like to do is that we have a dedicated like working document for each page of the website. And as we have those SEO keywords, we assign those keywords to a particular page. And then we have that top of the page on our working document. So it's always guiding the copy that we're writing. And then also the assets that we'll pull in. So we'd say, we can give recommendations and say, these are the things that we would consider interlinking on the site, or linking on this site, internal linking, external linking, all of those considerations as you're drafting the copy out. And that's guided by the user journey mapping. So maybe you're on a solution page and you've said, I want to have this solution guide, relevant solution guide on the page. We want to make sure we note on our kind of working document, we want to include that here, link to that on a different page. And so it's an active process as you're writing the copy. What stream do you want to take folks through? What kind of journey do you want to take them through on the website? And then how does that relate to your SEO efforts as well? I don't know if you can expand on that, Hanan, or.
It's such a huge topic that I think this deserves
its own dedicated interlinking.
Yeah, but to put it simply, you would want the users to spend more time on your website, go from one product offering to another. You would want them to travel through your solutions. Could be the way you've defined your solutions. You don't have your solution offering is not solving all of their problems. Let's say solution A solves 50% of the problem, and that's not enough for them to be convinced to start working with you. But your solution B or solution C might, solve the rest of the 50%. So you would want to interlink different solutions. You would want them to go through all of your solutions. If you have any special playbooks or white papers that you've written, as much content as you would like to display over there. Obviously, you can't make a very long page, so people, most of the people, they won't scroll to the bottom of the page, and most of the good copy or important points will be missed out. So that's why we used interlinking. You could have a blade over there, it could be a hyperlink, could be a small section break over there, could be a side panel. The options are just limitless.
Yeah. In your messaging, it's really like, that's interesting. Tell me more, like giving kind of the hook to people, like these are the key features or key benefits, whatever it might be. Oh, like that's interesting. That really speaks to the pain point that I'm having. Tell me more. And that's an opportunity to link to something that expands on that topic in greater detail.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think in your resources is really one of the best places to have your internal linking, as you, for example, like on our website, EMA's website, if we have a blog that's on, say, a topic like SEO, throughout our blog, we're going to interlink to another case study that we have that showed how we drove organic traffic through SEO, or we're going to have it linked to a webinar on the same related topic. So definitely, as you're building your resource library, interlinking comes into play there too.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing process. Like once you've built out the website, your interlinking will not stop as you churn out more content, more webinars. You have to keep on going back and making those links.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. All right, let's move on.
So now we're to the more exciting part, what everyone is hoping to show up on day one and be able to do, but is not really the case. But when we start the design and development process, where we like to begin is wireframes. And this is more of just a 2D look at the website. What are the bones of each of the individual pages before we get started on design? So what's going to be in the header? Will there be a certain image? How will the text be justified? Just a very basic look at the layout of each page of the website, both on mobile and desktop. From there, once that's reviewed, approved, everyone's happy with the general look and feel and direction of the design, that's when we transition over to those high fidelity designs, where you get to see what the developed, finalized website is actually going to look like. Anything to add to that, Hanan, in that process?
And On this, we usually use Figma for this, and the advantage that Figma provides is you can actually prototype everything. You can, before even you start developing a single page, you can actually see just from design how your whole website user journey mapping is going to be, and you can create those hyperlinks, and you can get the whole user experience just at the design phase, so that if you need to calibrate something, you need to reconfigure something, you can do that. And that's the best practice that we follow. So yeah, you're absolutely with you over there.
And then the third step is that this is regardless of refresh, or if you're starting from scratch or redesign, no matter what the case may be, we always recommend having a sandbox environment or a staging site to do everything. So even if you're just doing a simple refresh, changing colors, we like to do all of that in a sandbox environment so that we have the opportunity to see it. How does that change impact other areas of the website? Like, will it cause a bug or a problem? Is everyone happy with it before we actually push it live to production? It gives everybody the chance to take a closer look at it before it's actually live and external facing to the rest of the world. We recommend using things like global headers and footers that go across the entire website, making sure pages are dynamically designed. And not any thoughts on the dynamic design of that?
These are just some of the best practices that we recommend to everyone, because you have to keep the future in mind. You've designed it once, the website is complete, but every time you're going to have new updates, you're going to be churning out more content. You might want to change the leadership page, or you might want to obviously you'll have your own HR portal as well. So you need to make sure that your pages are dynamically designed, and the the headers and the footers are globally designed, so that you just change them once in the template and it's applied across the board, and you don't have to basically build the page every time you're making a change.
Mm-hmm. And then once everything's built out, looking good, everyone's happy, we still want to address on-page optimization. So things like the speed of the site, the loading time, making sure that's really fast so that people don't bounce off your page because they're waiting for your imagery to pop up on the page. Open graph settings, meta descriptions and tags. These are things that are in the back end and address SEO efforts, but really important to have. They'll pop up sometimes in the tab at the top, your title of the page itself. So you want that to be on point and in line with the messaging on the page. Any redirects that you have to have in place. So maybe you've redesigned the site, you've gotten rid of a few pages, but those pages are out there in the world, whether it's on social or you've shared it, a link on an asset or something like that. Making sure that people went and actually directly went to that site, that you'd be redirecting them to the new page and the content that's replaced that. Dedicated thank you pages for all of your forms. So when you're capturing your leads, you want to send them, give them a good fluid user experience, thank them for downloading your asset, for example, and then addressing lazy loading and just JavaScript differing. So a lot of the technicalities in the back end of the website. And then once all of that is done, we're still not quite ready to push it live, but almost there. And the most important piece of the puzzle is really the website testing. And this is an opportunity, depending on your situation, whether if you're working for an agency, doing it internally, whatever the case may be, but getting as many eyes on the website as possible before you push it live. Looking at it in multiple browsers. So look in Safari, look in Chrome, look in Firefox. You want to look on desktop, mobile, see how everything's working and functioning. Is it working as anticipated? Are you noting any bugs? Having everyone give you second, third, fourth set of eyes for copy, making sure that there's no spelling or grammar issues across the website, that everything falls within your brand guidelines appropriately. Are the links that you have on the page, are they the color that they're supposed to be in line with your brand guidelines? Are your buttons having curved edges versus, square? All the different considerations that come into making sure it's perfect and up to par to push live. And then from there, launching your website, very exciting moment. And not in a second, maybe you can give some recommendations of when to do that, but anticipating the fact that there might be a problem when it pushes live, more than likely minor, but things happen, and just be ready once it goes live to have your team take a look at it, continue to test in QA and make sure everything's working seamlessly. So I don't know, Hanan, do you have a recommendation on when you would go ahead and push a site live?
We always prefer to push it live over the weekend so that, it's we don't have business days, people are off, not many people are viewing the website, and you can actually test it in a live environment. So if anything is not functioning, your internal team can test it over the weekend. If they find a small minor bug, they can fix it right away before, on Monday, before your PR hits the newsstand, you have everything inch perfect and everything's working fine. So yeah, that's what we recommend to everyone. That's the safest way to go.
Yeah. And so a lot of these things kind of work, and this rolls into our next point, which is a continued look at kind of the project management aspect of things, best practices for managing these workflows. Nothing ever works out perfectly. Processes change, you have overlap, you're working in parallel. But one thing that we like to do is create a Gantt chart. And this is just a very simplistic example. These can get highly complicated. But as you're moving towards website design and development, scope out your project, depending on how complex it is, how long is it going to take, and then lay out your steps from there and what's dependent on the next thing. So people be like, well, why isn't this happening as fast as I want it to? And we can point back and say, well, the copy isn't finalized. We really need this person, whoever's owning that copy, to finalize that before we can move forward with this next step. And it helps really the team visualize what needs to happen, what's dependent on other tasks, where are the bottlenecks, basically. And so we like to track the status. Is something in progress? Is it in review? Is it complete? And just track that project along the way. So just a good example of a potential template that you could use to track your project timeline. For project planning, this is a great place just to capture all of the information. There's a lot of links that get thrown out when you're using best practices and you have a staging site. You're going to have a dev site link for people to review. And depending on the scope of your project, you might be pushing pages live at a different time. Sometimes it's just a full introduction of a new website all at one time. But regardless, this is a good project planning template that we like to use. A week by week, what are we accomplishing? Who owns that? What's the status? What's the dev site links that can be communicated out to the greater team? Everyone can take a look as things are developed, and then is it approved to actually go live? So just another template to utilize if needed. And then finally, website QA. Our process for website QA, we like to have one working document that everyone has access to. And when we say, okay, everybody, like, get out there, start testing the website, look at the different browsers, this is the one place where we would capture all of that feedback into one spot for the developer to then take that and just start kind of picking away at those tasks. And so whether the status of it, whether it's open, is there missing information, is it in the hands of web dev? And it really gives a lot of clarity on who is taking ownership based on the stage that we're at in the QA process. Whether you're working in different time zones or just different workflows, we want to be very clear about where those changes need to happen. So give the specific section that needs to be changed, what browser, what needs to be fixed, and then a visual reference for that. So they can set, instead of saying like, in tile 2 on the page, you can give them a visual reference of where to go. And then is it done? Any notes? So just another template at your fingertips if it's helpful.
I would say it's really helpful.
Yes.
Really helpful when we're all working from the same
Because
document.
once you're testing the website and you have a lot of eyeballs, especially internally with internal stakeholders, everyone sort of resorts to jumping the gun and just sending the message that, okay, this is wrong and this is wrong, and you need to have like a proper mechanism to capture all the information which is relevant. And this saves a lot of time. We love this document.
And sometimes you have to be pretty firm about using this document. Like Hanan mentioned, I think people, they'll be on it and they'll say, I found a spelling error on this page, and they'll throw it into Teams or into Slack. And it just doesn't give visibility to the whole team. So this is something to really push for one clear spot for everyone to go and give their feedback.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much, Sarah and Hanan, for speaking with us today, and for everyone that's joined us. we'll give everyone a few more minutes if they want to ask any questions. We've been answering them along the way. Or if you all have any other points you want to speak to. I want to remind people they can always find all of our webinars on demand on our website at any time, including our presentations. And you'll find that at expertmarketingadvisors.com. And you can stay up to date with our upcoming webinar topics, including this website development series that will be upcoming on our LinkedIn page, Expert Marketing Advisors. And we really appreciate your time today. Hanan or Sarah, do you have any other points you want to make before we say goodbye?
Just that thank you so much for having us, and it was a pleasure talking about this. And yeah, as you mentioned earlier, this is such a complex, it seems like a simple topic, but it's such a complex topic, and we can do a webinar on each one of these workflow stages on its own. So yeah, I'm glad that we're starting this. It will be like a webinar series, and we'll be tackling more topics in depth later on. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.